The Pittsburgh Steelers finished the 2023 season with a 10-7 record and made the playoffs for the third time in 4 years. And unfortunately, for the third time in 4 years, they were eliminated in the wild card round of the playoffs. It was an up and down year for the Steelers as they had some very high highs, like beating the Ravens in Week 5 to improve to 3-2 at the time, or even beating the Bengals in Week 12 to improve to 7-4. But there were also some incredibly low lows, like losing to the Cardinals and Patriots in a span of 5 days, and becoming the first team ever over 500 to lose consecutive games with both teams being at least 8 games under 500. They would go on to win their final 3 games to finish with a 10-7 record before falling to Buffalo with a score of 31-17 in the wild card round. But the Steelers made a lot of moves this offseason, and several big moves, including trading former first-round quarterback Kenny Pickett to the Eagles and signing veteran quarterback Russell Wilson to a 1-year deal. They also traded for former Bears quarterback Justin Fields, and needless to say, it was a very busy offseason for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But even with the offseason moves, I have a lot of concerns with this team moving forward, and I think the Steelers have one big problem entering the 2024 season, which of course is at the quarterback position. But how far can they actually go? Well, we're going to break it down in today's video. Now let's begin. And we are starting today's video by breaking down who the Steelers lost in free agency and who they acquired in free agency. The biggest signing the Steelers made by far was former Ravens linebacker Patrick Queen. They signed Queen to a 3-year deal worth $41 million, and when this contract was signed, and Steelers fans may remember this, but I was a little critical of the signing because of how much money it was for Patrick Queen. This move made Queen the 4th highest paid inside linebacker on an average annual value basis, behind his former teammate Roquan Smith, Fred Warner, and Tremaine Edmunds. And no disrespect to Patrick, but he's not on the same level as Roquan or Fred, and I thought this contract was a little rich for him. But positively, what I will say is this contract protects the Steelers in the long run because they only gave him $13.8 guaranteed of the 41. And at the moment, whether the next guy up is George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, or eventually Joey Porter Jr., though that is a few years down the road, the Steelers won't be able to pay those guys because of the Queen contract. So over the past few months, I have come around to it and am hoping he is similar to the player he was for the Ravens last year. And that's honestly because the Patrick Queen that played for the Ravens in 2023 is a Pro Bowl caliber linebacker and a guy who can be a long-time starter for the Steelers. Queen will play this season at just 25 years old, and he is a player, if he stays healthy, will be around the league for at least 6 or 7 more years, so this does have potential long-term benefits. They also brought in punter Cameron Johnston from the Texans, they brought back Miles Killebrew, and they also brought in veteran Cordarrelle Patterson. And despite being 33 years old, Cordarrelle Patterson will be a legit impact player with the new kickoff rules, and this could prove to be a really good signing for the Steelers. There's a very real chance Cordarrelle could return a kick for a touchdown in a Week 15 game, where the Steelers win 13-10 based on good defensive and special teams play, in what would be a very Pittsburgh Steeler win. They also signed wide receiver Van Jefferson, and Van is a guy who I've always liked, and a player who I thought had legit breakout opportunity, but unfortunately never did. He had over 800 yards back in 2021, and has had just 578 receiving yards in the 2 seasons since. I wouldn't expect that much out of Van this year, but I hope he can be an okay role player and a guy who converts key third downs when you need him. I think Van Jefferson is the definition in 2024 of buying low with a chance for a decent return. Not 1,000 yards or anything like that, but I really don't see why Van couldn't have a 500 or 600 yard season this year in this offense. One other move the Steelers made I liked quite a bit was the addition of veteran safety DeShaun Elliott. Elliott was a 6th round pick for the Ravens back in 2018 and has made a nice career for himself and has played in 29 games over the past 2 years, both for the Lions and Dolphins. DeShaun isn't going to wow anybody, and he's probably not going to be a Pro Bowl safety, but why I liked this signing for Pittsburgh was because of what it represents. a good player and a true steady Eddie at the position who's going to know his role and do his job well. And anytime you can get that at the safety position for just $3 million per year, well, to be honest, I think that's a hell of a signing for the Steelers. I also like Elliott a lot as a complement to the multiple-time All-Pro Minkah Fitzpatrick, and think this safety duo will quietly be one of the better duos in all of football this year. And not just because of how good Minkah is, but because I think Deshaun Elliott complements his style of play really, really well. Now, for the 2024 Steelers defense, this is a unit I like quite a bit outside of really one position, which we'll get to shortly. There are a lot of positives, and it starts with a former Wisconsin Badger, which of course is Nick Herbig. Nick was a third-round pick in the 2023 draft and played pretty well in the limited role he had during his rookie year. And I like Nick a lot and think he can step in when need be and be a contributing player for the next few years. Now, jokes aside, as the obvious former Wisconsin Badger that leads this defense is TJ Watt. TJ is now a 6-time Pro Bowler and is coming off of a year in which he led the league in sacks, was a first-team All-Pro, and finished second in Defensive Player of the Year voting. Steelers fans, please feel free in the comments to let everyone know who you think should have won the Defensive Player of the Year award last year, but with guys like TJ, his running mate Alex Highsmith, and the 3 big boys on the interior defensive line in veteran Cam Hayward, other veteran Larry Ogunjobi, and second-year player Keanu Benton. The part of the defense that I admittedly have concerns with is the secondary, specifically at the corner position outside of Joey Porter Jr. But with the pass rush the Steelers will have this year, they should still be pretty solid in their pass defense simply because their corners are not going to have to cover as long as other corners across the league. Alex Highsmith has more than come into his own as a player, and he constantly displays a variety of pass rushing moves week in and week out, and due in large part to playing on the same team as TJ Watt. I really think Highsmith is one of the most underrated players, not just on the Steelers, but in the entire league. Highsmith had a career-high 69 pressures last year, and he has gotten better and more consistent since he entered the league back in 2020. Cam Hayward is now 35 years old and only played in 11 games last year, and at this point in his career, you can tell he's lost a step from the player he was in his prime several years ago, but he's still a very solid player, and I would expect much of the same in 2024. I don't think he'll be a 9 or 10 sack guy like he was even as short as 2 years ago, but he can absolutely push the pocket and play his role well at this point in his career. And to be completely honest, with both Larry Ogunjobi and Keanu Benton, who I think will break out this year, and with both of those guys along the defensive line, Cam doesn't need to be the guy he was in his prime. Say what you want about the Steelers at the quarterback position and how they've handled things over the past several years, but they have done a tremendous job of continuously replenishing the pass rush and being able to get after the quarterback, and in a big way. And in turn, this has helped them win games over the past few years that, on paper at least, you wouldn't think the Steelers would have any shot at winning. But one big thing that cannot happen for the 2024 Steelers that unfortunately happened multiple times throughout the 2023 season, like during the 49ers game or like during the Texans game, for example, was if they got behind early, they were done. And the 2023 Steelers offense was not built to play from behind, and that was shown multiple times throughout the 2023 season. They finished 28th in points per game, which in turn hurt the defense at times because there was only so much the defense could do, and hell, for that matter, there were a few games where the defense basically said, "I've had enough of the lackluster offense, we're going to take matters into our own hands, and we're going to win the game for us." And this was evident in the Browns game in Week 2 and the Ravens game in Week 5. The Steelers defense forced 27 turnovers last year, which had them at 8th in the entire league, and I would expect them to be near there again this year. They recovered 11 fumbles defensively, and anytime you have TJ and Alex rushing from the outside, well, that puts them in really good hands, and by having those two alone, that creates a ton of pressure for the opposing offense to get the ball out and fast, and sometimes pressures are as good as sacks because that can force hurried decisions, which in turn can lead throws into double coverage or just flat out bad decisions. Linebacker Cole Holcomb was playing well for the Steelers before going down with a season-ending injury, and I am excited to see how him and Patrick Queen play together this year. The corners after Joey Porter Jr. are Dante Jackson, Josiah Scott, Anthony Averett, and Cameron Sutton, who is suspended to start the year, and for 8 games to be exact. Corner Dante Jackson was acquired in a trade with the Panthers for a pick swap along with receiver Deontay Johnson, and to be honest, I did not like this trade for Pittsburgh because I don't think Dante is that great of a player, and the corner room on this team isn't great as it is. I don't want Steelers fans heading into the year thinking that Dante is going to be a great player and that he's going to step up and have a career year and be a Pro Bowler on this team. I mean, I guess that could happen, but I am pretty underwhelmed with this corner room outside of JPJ. But like we mentioned during the pass rushing part of the video, I think the not great corner play can be somewhat negated by the pass rush. And not only that, but hopefully, and I mean hopefully, the Steelers can play smash-mouth football offensively and run the ball efficiently with Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, because in turn, that would help out the 2024 Steelers defense. And relative to the 2023 Steelers offense, I can't imagine there's not an improvement with the 2024 Steelers offense. The 2024 Steelers offense is fun to project for a few reasons, and the first, of course, is assuming it's not going to be what it was in 2023, which was bad, at least for the most part. The Cardinals, Patriots, and Colts game, and especially the Mitch games, were at times downright awful. And as long as Russell Wilson is not what Kenny Pickett was, aside from a play here and a play there, and aside from especially what Mitch was, as long as Russ is not either of those players in 2024, the Steelers offense is going to be fine. The big thing to remember with the 2024 Steelers offense is they don't have to be top 6 or top 8 or top 10. As long as they're top 16 or top 18, even maybe top 20, just as long as they are not 28th in points per game, and as long as they are not a net negative in the passing game, the Steelers will be fine. Even for as difficult as their schedule is, they will still probably win 9 or 10 or 11 games. What also has to be remembered for the 2023 Steelers is, as a team, they threw 13 touchdowns last year over the course of 17 games. Now, whatever you think of Russell Wilson, whether you think he is a bum at this point, whether you think he's washed, whatever, I think we can all agree that he can still throw for at least 13 touchdowns, considering he quite literally threw for double that last year. Now, just because Russ threw for 26 touchdowns does not make me think he was a top 10 or 12 quarterback last year, but the point is, he can be competent, which is what the Steelers need. And we often bring the term complementary football up on the channel, and I don't know if there's a team that applies to more than what the 2024 Steelers need from the quarterback position. As long as they are not a joke back there, and as long as they are not set up to lose before the game starts, like they were with the Patriots and Colts game last year, they're going to be fine. From a stat sheet standpoint, I think Russ will throw for right around 3,700 yards, and I think he'll throw for around 23 or 24 touchdowns. This is, of course, assuming he starts all 17 games, and when you break down the 3,700 yards, I think George Pickens will be around 11 or 1,200 yards, with Freiermuth and Roman Wilson each around 6 to 700, and a variety of weapons concluding or adding up to the rest of the 3,700 yards. One thing that I think is worth noting for the 2024 Steelers offense is the youth along the offensive line. Now, I did make a video a couple of months ago about how much I loved the Steelers 2024 draft class and how much I really loved the pairings of Fetanu, Frazier, and then eventually 4th round guard Mason McCormick, who we will soon break down more during the rookie impact part of the video. But there is also a lot that can go wrong early on with a relatively young offensive line, which the Steelers very much have. And that also applies to Broderick Jones, who is entering his second season. Now, we often talk about the rookie quarterback window, and the Texans and Panthers are in that window right now with CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, but it's also it's pretty cool that the Steelers have 3 starters right now along the offensive line in the rookie contract window, which can lead them to spend a lot of money elsewhere because they have presumable good players, a good player in Broderick and then presumable in Fetanu and Frazier, while playing at a discount. But it is worth noting that when you have guys under the age of 25 and in their rookie or even second season in Broderick's case, that there is a lot that can go wrong from a communication standpoint, especially early on. Overall, I think the Steelers offense will be fine in the long run, and I think the offensive line, not just in 24, but in 25 and beyond, I think they will be more than fine, but I did at least want to note that potential danger early on in the 2024 season. The Steelers' 2024 rookie impact will absolutely be near the top of the league, and outside of Chicago, who is kind of an outlier as they had 2 top 9 picks in Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, the Steelers' rookie impact is going to be a lot. They will have Troy Fautanu starting at left tackle from day one, and they will have second-round pick Zach Frazier starting at center from day one. One of my favorite picks in the entire draft based on landing spot was Roman Wilson going to the Steelers. Now, it's not normal for people to be excited about a third-round receiver, but Roman Wilson going to the Steelers of all teams is not a normal third-round pick, and the Steelers have quite a rich history at the receiver position, whether it was Hines Ward, Santonio Holmes, AB, Mike Wallace, Emmanuel Sanders, Juju, George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, and to be completely honest, I may have even forgotten a name in there, but you get the point. It's been a long 25 years of the Steelers having great receivers, and people are going to get caught up in that, and I completely understand why. Roman is not just a name, though. He's a really, really good receiver, and I think he will complement George Pickens well. And in terms of him being a Robin to another receiver's Batman, I don't know how many more receivers, aside from like a Justin Jefferson, where Roman could have won into a situation and been a great Robin immediately, which I think he will be. From a stat sheet standpoint for Roman, I think he'll be around 600 or 700 yards in his rookie year, which is still phenomenal for a third-round player. I also really, really liked linebacker Peyton Wilson out of NC State, and I think him being a third linebacker behind Cole Holcomb and Patrick Queen is going to be a great value pick over the course of time. For the Steelers' 2024 rookie impact, or for their long-term draft class, this class will prove to be a great one over time, but in 2024 specifically, they're going to have at least 2 starters, and even Mason McCormick may eventually become a long-term starter, but for the 2 starters, they'll have along the offensive line the production of Roman Wilson, and eventually Peyton Wilson getting some either tackles as a third linebacker if they sub him in specific packages, maybe even as a special teams player. The Steelers' 2024 class is going to be one of the better ones immediately. For the 2024 Steelers schedule, starting off hot is essential to their success. Now, you often hear coaches say, well, we need to start off strong and, we can't afford to start bad. And while everybody thinks that and nobody wants to start off 0-1 or 0-2 or 1-4 or whatever the case may be, it's really critical for the Steelers this year, because from weeks 11 through 18 in those final 8 games, they have 6 division games, which of course are a mixture of the Bengals, Browns, and Ravens, and the only 2 non-division games during that stretch are against the Eagles, who improved from last year to this year, and you guessed it, the Chiefs. So the Steelers cannot afford to start off 1-4 or 2-3, or even for that matter, 3-2. They're going to have to start off 4-1, 5-1, 6-1, or even 6-2 just for a chance to get to 9-8 or 10-7 and have a chance at making the playoffs. One thing that you may not know, Steelers fans unfortunately know, but TJ Watt has never won a playoff game. So despite all of the, we've never had a losing record under Mike Tomlin, and despite all of that, it's been since 2016 since this team's won a playoff game. And speaking of team ceilings, I don't think the team ceiling for the Steelers is all that high this year, not just because of Russell Wilson, but I don't think the Steelers' offense is going to be enough to go into a Buffalo or Baltimore or Cincinnati or Kansas City with the season on the line. And the one thing that we don't know here in early August is how the AFC playoff seedings are going to play out. But the reality, at least for my Steelers 2024 prediction, is I don't think they're going to win the AFC North, which then would put them as a wild card. And I don't trust them going into any of those places and winning. So my team ceiling for the Steelers is a wild card round exit. And if in the scenario they win in the wild card round, which I don't think they're going to, but then it would be a divisional round exit. I just don't see this team winning multiple road playoff games let alone 3 playoff games to get to the Super Bowl and to play New Orleans for Super Bowl 59. So my team ceiling for the Steelers is a wild card round exit, but that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like and subscribe, as only about 40% of people watching are subscribed and helps the channel tremendously. Also, please check out the Football Analysis Podcast, and I will see you guys next time. Love you guys.